The bill is rising, the anger is rising, and now the cost is landing on the shoulders of everyday taxpayers. $180,000. That is the figure now attached to the Waspi legal case, a case born from broken expectations, delayed retirements, and lives thrown into financial uncertainty. But today, a new question is dominating the conversation. Should the public be footing this bill? Or has a long-running injustice simply reached its most controversial chapter yet? For years, the women affected by sudden state pension age changes have said the same thing. They were not given fair notice. They were not given time to adjust. Many had already planned their retirement. Some had left work. Others had caring responsibilities. And then the rules changed. Suddenly, retirement was pushed back by years. Income disappeared. Savings were drained. Stress soared. And for many, the impact was not just financial, it was deeply personal. The Waspi campaign was built on that frustration. It became a symbol of resistance for hundreds of thousands of women born in the 1950s who felt abandoned by the system they had paid into all their lives. They organized, they protested, they lobbied MPs, they challenged ministers, and finally they turned to the courts. The legal battle that followed was never just about money. It was about recognition, about accountability, about whether the government had a duty to inform people properly when fundamental rules of retirement were altered. The case drew national attention. It featured in Parliament, in newsrooms, and across kitchen table conversations up and down the country. Many supported the women. Many felt their anger was justified. But now, the financial reality of legal action is coming sharply into focus. $180,000 in legal costs. And that figure is expected to be covered by taxpayers. For some, that feels like another injustice. People struggling with energy bills, food prices, housing costs, and taxes are now being told they will also absorb the cost of a legal fight between campaigners and the government. Critics argue that while the Waspi cause may be emotionally compelling, the public should not be asked to pay for courtroom battles when budgets are already stretched. Others see it very differently. They argue that the government's failure to communicate properly forced these women into legal action in the first place. If the harm had not occurred, there would have been no court case. From that view, the legal bill is simply part of the cost of past policy failures. A bill that society must face, however uncomfortable it may be. But there is another layer to this story, one that often gets lost in the headlines. Behind the figures, behind the court documents, behind the political arguments, there are real lives that were reshaped overnight. Women who expected to retire at 60, only to be told they must now work until 66. Women who had planned to care for elderly parents or grandchildren. Women who had health conditions that made extended working life physically painful. Women who had already stepped back from their careers and found it nearly impossible to return at the level needed to survive financially. Some were forced onto benefits. Some took low-paid work just to survive. Some fell into debt. Some lost their homes. The Waspi campaign did not emerge from nowhere. It came from silent suffering that had gone on for years before finally finding a voice. Yet the national mood is complicated. There is sympathy, but there is also fatigue. Many taxpayers feel trapped in a system where every major mistake ends up being paid for by the public. Banks collapsed and were bailed out. Contracts failed and were written off. Projects ran over budget and costs doubled. Now another six-figure legal bill arrives. People are asking whether accountability ever truly rises above the level of those who fund the system itself. There is also political tension at play. Any discussion around pension policy is explosive. The state pension is one of the most sensitive areas of public spending. Millions depend on it. Any perception of unfairness is magnified instantly. And when legal cases are added to that equation, the pressure increases exponentially. Supporters of the Waspi movement say $180,000 is small compared to the long-term financial damage already inflicted on affected women. They argue that many women lost far more than that collectively in delayed pension payments. From their perspective, the legal bill is a rounding error next to the human and economic damage caused by sudden rule changes. Opponents counter that emotion cannot override fiscal responsibility. They point out that pension age changes were driven by longevity increases and financial sustainability. People are living longer, Pension systems everywhere are under strain. Governments face difficult choices. And while communication failures may have occurred, they argue the core policy was unavoidable. This clash between fairness and affordability now sits at the heart of the $180,000 question. Who should carry the cost when public policy causes harm but aims to protect long-term stability? The case also exposes a deeper issue within modern governance. Trust. When people pay into a system for decades, they believe the rules will be stable or that they will be given real time to adapt if changes are coming. When that trust breaks, the consequences go far beyond money. Faith in institutions begins to erode, cynicism grows, political disengagement rises, and legal conflict becomes one of the last remaining tools people feel they have. The Waspi legal fight reflects not just a pension dispute, but a wider frustration with how major decisions are communicated and implemented. Too often, changes arrive in technical language, buried in documents few ordinary people ever read. Notices are issued, but never truly explained. Timelines are extended quietly. And then, years later, the human impact erupts into public view. The 180,000 legal bill is a visible symbol of that breakdown in trust. Yet it also raises uncomfortable questions about the future. If every major policy dispute ends in court, public finances will take repeated hits, campaign groups will increasingly rely on legal pressure, governments will become more defensive, and taxpayers will be caught in the middle again and again. This is not just about one group of women, it sets a precedent. Who pays when public policy fails to land properly? Who absorbs the cost of unresolved communication failures? Who ultimately carries the burden when law, politics, and personal lives collide? The Waspi women have become a powerful symbol precisely because their story resonates so widely. It touches on aging, work, health, gender equality, planning, security, and dignity. Many people watching this unfold do not see strangers on the news. They see their mothers, their aunts, their neighbors, the women who built families, careers, and communities while believing the pension system would one day provide a stable safety net. When that promise feels broken, anger is not just understandable, it becomes inevitable. At the same time, younger generations watching this debate feel their own pressure building. They worry whether any pension system will still exist for them at all. They see taxes rise while public services strain. They hear about six-figure legal bills and wonder whether tomorrow's workers are constantly being asked to clean up yesterday's messes. This generational tension adds another layer of complexity to an already sensitive issue. The $180,000 figure has become a flashpoint because it touches every nerve at once. Justice versus cost. Sympathy versus fatigue. Accountability versus inevitability. It forces the nation to confront how it handles long-term promises in a world where financial realities constantly shift. And yet, for the women at the center of this storm, the debate is far simpler. They say they were not told properly. They say they were not given enough time. They say they lost years of income they had depended on. They say they were forced to fight to be heard. And they say this legal bill is simply the price of demanding fairness. Whether the public agrees or not, the emotional weight of those claims cannot be erased by spreadsheets or budget lines. It lives in lived experience, in empty savings accounts, in postponed retirements, in stress-related illness, in relationships strained by financial pressure. This is why the story continues to divide opinion so sharply. Some see campaigners who refuse to accept economic reality. Others see ordinary women forced into battle by institutional silence. Some see taxpayers unfairly punished. Others see taxpayers finally confronting the hidden costs of poor communication. And in the middle stands the government, defending policy decisions while facing growing pressure to acknowledge moral responsibility even when legal responsibility may be denied. The truth is, the $180,000 legal bill is not really about $180,000. It is about whether those who made life-changing decisions without properly informing the public should face deeper consequences. It is about whether justice should be measured only in court victories or also in public acknowledgement. It is about whether the cost of fixing past mistakes should be hidden inside national budgets or openly debated as part of democratic accountability. And it is about whether future generations will inherit a system built on transparency or one built on quiet adjustments and delayed fallout. As this story continues to unfold, one thing is certain. It will not fade quietly. The emotions are too strong. The implications are too wide, and the trust at stake is too fundamental. For some, justice will only come with financial compensation. For others, justice would simply be hearing the words, "We got this wrong," said plainly and without legal deflection. For taxpayers, justice might mean knowing that future changes will be communicated clearly, honestly, and long before lives are disrupted. And for policymakers, justice may lie in learning that figures on a policy document eventually become faces in real life. 180,000 may be the number in the headline today, but the true cost of this story is far larger than any legal invoice. It is measured in years of uncertainty, in delayed dreams, in broken expectations, and in the fragile line between public trust and public disillusion. As the legal battles fade and the headlines move on, one question will remain hanging in the air long after the numbers are forgotten. When the system changes the rules late in the game, who really pays the price? The answer may not be found in courtrooms or bank balances, but in the quiet lives shaped by decisions made far away from them. And that is a price no spreadsheet will ever fully capture.